Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this is Entertainment Spotlight. Joining me today is Marc Carnes, CAO of CKUA radio station. Thanks for joining us, Marc.
Thanks, Mario. Great to be here.
Well, you got a big day coming up, November 21st. It's the 94th anniversary of CKUA. Is that right?
Yeah. We don't feel a day over 30, but yeah, 94 coming up on Sunday. So yeah, hard to believe we're getting pretty close to that 100th anniversary mark.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the station for those out there that don't really know much about CKUA. Tell us a little bit about the station and what you guys do and do well.
Yeah. Well, so we were founded in 1927. So we're Canada's oldest public broadcaster, 6 years older than the CBC. So they're our little brother, I like to say. We've been through all kinds of incarnations over the years. We started out as an educational broadcaster, taking extension courses out to the rural Alberta. And then over the years, we've sort of gone on through different phases, but now we're primarily donor supported public radio stations. So means our listeners are our shareholders and our owners at the same time, which is a pretty amazing model to have. Within that, I mean, we're a multi-genre radio station. So we have about 32 shows on air in a given week. So about 126 hours of fresh broadcasting every week, representing musical genres from across the spectrum. So all the best music you're not going to hear on commercial radio. And because we're listener supported, we're minimal advertising. Really trying to create an experience that's authentic and true to the listeners and what they want to hear. That's going to open your horizons and discover new music that you've never heard before and learn more about the arts and culture that are coming out of Alberta and impacting the world.
Yeah, let's talk about the donor supported. You recently completed your fall campaign. How much money was raised?
Final tally was $1,045,000.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about that and the importance of that campaign? And you have the spring one as well, right?
Yeah. So we do two campaigns every year. So our operating budget is about $5.5 million. So we're not small by any means, and that's to operate a province-wide transmitter system of 16 community transmitters, and then our online world. And because we're public radio, we're professional as well. So we pay everybody and try to make sure everybody has a full meal on their table at the end of the week. So we have the two every 6 months. We do an on-air campaign. It's 30 days, of which the first 2/3 are all online. And then we go pretty hard for 10 days on the air, and all of our hosts get a chance to reach out, and we're trying to raise money, but really what we're doing during that time is we're celebrating the CKUA community. And so we hear from our listeners, and they make donations, and they tell us why they love CKUA, and they tell us why they love their community, and it spurs on more support from other listeners. So those campaigns, two of those a year is $2 million out of our $5.5 million budget. So it's a huge amount of money for us. And then on top of that, we have listeners who do monthly donations. And so that's another $2 million a year right there. So there we are, Mario. Thank you very much. I'll be the first amongst us to say thank you. And that's what it is. It's a really interesting business model. I mean, our hands are truly our livelihood is in the hands of our listeners. And so you really get into a conversation around value and trust. Do we create enough value that, Mario, you get this for free every day, that you're willing to throw in a few bucks when we ask? And do you trust us that we're going to do the right thing by continuing to deliver the type of music experience that you want to hear?
What, with the campaign, the support comes from everywhere. That's one thing people need to understand, I guess, right? It's just not a local, Alberta thing, right? And where are some of the strangest places you've heard? Well, strangest, but one of the way places, I guess, that you've heard people supporting the station from?
So we actually just ran this from our last campaign. We had donors from 10 provinces and a territory from across Canada. We had communities all across the US. We had 2 donors from Finland, 2 donors from Switzerland, Belize, Guatemala, Copenhagen. It really is a global community that, is something that's grown over the years, and our online presence is constantly growing. And so we have listeners, we can track online. You can watch the heat maps light up about where listeners are tuning in from, and it's pretty incredible. but we get the support from 6 continents. We have listeners on 6 continents, hopefully 7. We don't know about Antarctica.
Yeah. What are the plans for this station going forward?
Oh, lots of stuff. I mean, we have our 100th anniversary coming, so that's a pretty big thing. The best birthday party the province is going to hear. But there's a lot of work going on. We're dealing with a shifting media consumption world, just like everybody else. So what we know and what we've been working a lot on is that importance of local. And by local, I don't mean geographically local, but what's local and important to you. So, we take our role of being ambassadors for Alberta and promoting it around the world. And in doing so, we're also introducing Alberta to some of the great musicians and artists from around the world that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Yeah.
So more focus on telling those local stories, connecting listeners with artists and audiences they may never have experienced before. That means also adjusting our the music offerings that we have, because music tastes are changing with generations. Technology is a big thing for us too. So we want to get to a point where, and we're working on this right now, that we could actually start to offer some of our programs on demand, because we know that the world is shifting to an on-demand model.
Yeah.
And what I love about radio is it's real time, and if you listen to it and you catch it, it's amazing. But what I hate about radio is real time, and if you miss it, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So the idea of catching up on those is really big. So yeah, we're looking at a lot of technological innovation for the organization, and really just continuing to really trumpet a very underserved arts community that doesn't have a lot of ways of, mainstream media is not telling the art story the way it used to. We noticed there's a vacuum in sort of telling the Alberta story in so many ways, and this is part of our role. So we want to do more of that.
Yeah. How long have you been with the station?
I've been with the station 4.5 years.
Okay.
So
what brought you there?
A recruiter who dared me. No, actually, I had known Ken Regan, my predecessor, for a while before, and had done some work with CKUA in a consulting capacity, place doing consulting. Yeah. And what I love about CKUA is the fact that it is so heavily community supported. We have 1.5% of our operating funds is government funding, so we're not we're very much forced to be relevant to the community to ensure that we have that support. Yeah. But what I love about the CKUA community is that it's amazing how connected the people can be through a medium that's invisible and untouchable. But if I walk down the street in Canmore, or if I walk down the street in Vancouver and somebody sees me wearing a CKUA logo, they stop and they talk. There's something about this community that is so incredibly welcoming. Yeah. And it transcends what you do for work, where you live, how you vote. Any of that doesn't matter. It's a part of this group of people that are connected by, something as simple but meaningful as music and art.
As an avid, probably since the 80s, I guess, but avid supporter and listener and volunteer, right? I remember volunteering at the Calgary Folk Festival at one of the CKUA booths a long time ago. I'm just recalling the sad night when the station went off the air years ago, right? And how scary in some ways it was for everybody, right? What do you think the station learned from that time and that sort of tumultuous time?
Yeah, well, I mean, so a little bit of backstory. The station went off the air in '97 because we were government funded up until that point. Yeah. And then we were unceremoniously decommissioned in the middle of the night, and people woke up to dead air. Yeah. There is that element of community that came through during that time. Like, the weeks after that, people were literally shoving cash in envelopes and mailing it into the station to try and get it back up and running in a new model. Wow. It was the outpour of support from the community and the leadership, and Tommy Banks is part of this, and so an incredible group of individuals who are still involved with the CKUA of today, being a part of it. So what it's really taught us is the importance of community, and the importance of being authentic to who you are, and the importance of saying thank you to listeners and to supporters, because we can't take it for granted. It's part of our DNA. We live in complete symbiosis with our listeners and our supporters.
Yeah.
And that time really shot a spotlight on the importance of people staying connected, and and finding a common bond in something as important as music.
Yeah.
So we hold on to that very true, and it's a rewarding thing. At the end of the day, you can have a terrible day at work. You can turn on the radio at the end of the day, hear a great song, hear a familiar host tell you a great story about that song, and you realize, you know what, today wasn't so bad. We know, and we hear it every single day from our listeners, that we help make the world a little bit of a better place. There's so much sadness and challenge going on in the world, but people turn on CKUA and things aren't so bad.
Yeah, I do have my favorites, and I love Baba in the morning, and then but on the weekend, on the Saturdays with Holger and with Mulligan Stew, just blast the music out and just enjoy it, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting too. I mean, it's sort of, we're this public community supported radio station, but the people that have come through CKUA over 94 years is incredible. I mean, Holger Peterson, 50 years, National Blues. He's like the longest running blues show in Canada. He's Order of Canada recipient. He started the Edmonton Folk Festival, a giant in the industry, recording industry. Terry David Mulligan, a giant in the media industry. And the list just goes on and on and on, whether they're giants in the media space, whether they're artists like Kaylee Cardinal, Juno award-winning musician who's now a host with us. Like the breadth of talent that something like CKUA attracts, and what that allows us to help our community of listeners do, which is discover amazing artists, just doesn't stop. And this isn't something that's just now. This has been this way since 1927.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
You bet. All right, super. Thanks, Marc, for joining us today. That was great.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right, that was Marc Carnes, who is CEO of CKUA. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this is Entertainment Spotlight. Thanks for joining us.